Happy Friday. It is another Mavens of Manufacturing Day, and today is episode 135, and it is sponsored by the ISA, or the International Society of Automation. We have a very brief and special message from them after this episode, so be sure to tune into that because it involves a great sale for the holiday week that we have coming up here in the United States, and you don't want to miss it. Today, my guest is Caitríona. She is the cluster manager for ATIM, and that stands for Advanced Technologies in Manufacturing. And I would like to welcome you, Caitríona. How are you doing today?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me. I know that we've spoken a few times, so it's fantastic. I do want to say I've spoken on many things and people in different countries before. So if I'm speaking and can't hear me, please pop it in the chat, or Meaghan, you can kind of tell me to slow down as well.
I can absolutely hear you, and anyone who's tuning in live, just let us know where you're tuning in from. Like, we already have Angela who's popping up here. She says, "Good morning, everyone." Thank you, Angela, for joining us. And then as our discussion progresses, if you have any questions specific for Caitríona, please feel free to drop them in the chat, and we can pull those in as well, because I don't like being the only person asking questions and having the conversation. So real quick, Caitríona, can you just tell us a little bit more about yourself? You're tuning in from Ireland, which is a place that I've always wanted to visit, and hopefully one of these days I can come visit you and meet you in person, because I love meeting my guests in person. But how did you get involved with engineering and manufacturing? Was it something that you always had a passion for and wanted to pursue?
Well, I think I was reflecting upon this, and I was definitely one of those kids, as my parents said that, and my teachers, why? But actually, I didn't pursue engineering at all. I went into business and German, and following that, then I moved over to Dubai and taught 4-year-olds for a period of time. But I suppose while I was there, I moved in. I was working on trade fairs. One of those was called Middle East Electricity over in Dubai. So I was then began to be surrounded around connecting with companies across Europe to come over to the Middle East. And I really began to understand kind of the diverse portfolio of engineering. And then when I came back, I began to work in Engineers Ireland for around 8 years. So there I led the STEPS program. So it was their outreach program. And in addition to that, then worked on some policy papers around education, and supported, things like, the different maths curriculum and all. So I've always kind of been on the periphery of it. And then I worked as a researcher, trying to bring different stakeholders together around the advances of emerging technologies like AI for a research centre in Dublin. So the common thread is I've been on the side, but I've also, brought together stakeholders trying to inform, the new direction of engineering and STEM. And that's been really my background to date.
That's a lot of fun. I really like connecting people and bridging people together. So I feel like that would be an area where I would be interested in, definitely, for sure. Because I don't have an engineering background, but I write about it all the time, and I have to talk to different people and bring it together. But I do want to talk about ATIM, because and I mentioned this to you before we started our live. I feel like the cluster kind of formation that you have there in Ireland is similar to what our MEPs are, or our manufacturing extension partnerships here are in the United States. So can you give us a brief background of what ATIM is, and like how it got started and what its mission is in terms of like connecting not just companies together, but also like educational institutions and government institutions?
Yeah, so ATIM is the Advanced Technologies in Manufacturing Cluster. We're still, I suppose, compared to European counterparts and even global counterparts, quite in our infancy. We're emerging really in terms of what we're doing with clusters in Ireland, but it's exciting to be part of it. Ultimately, the government recognised the importance of strengthening the regions in Ireland, and had this goal of building out sectoral clusters. So ultimately, the goal of the clusters is trying to bridge some of the knowledge from our knowledge providers in the regions, and trying to bring that out to industry in general, but SMEs in particular. So there's 12
Okay.
clusters funded by the government, but under Enterprise Ireland in our country, and they have different remits. So, for example, there's one on cyber, there's one on digital health. So, obviously, the Advanced Technologies and Manufacturing cluster is focused on manufacturing. So, we're based in the Midlands of Ireland, and as you might be aware, manufacturing is kind of a cornerstone of economic activity as well for Ireland. And I suppose the Midlands in particular, manufacturing employs over 270,000 people in Ireland. And, that's a huge economic benefit. But 18% of that people are employed in the Midlands compared to 12.5% nationally. So, you're building on strengths really from a regional context as well. The other key economic contributor in the region is ICT. So you're looking almost at this industry 4 component, but then everything is working in silos, or everything is placed in kind of siloed activity. So the role of the cluster is to try and bridge those silos so that your companies that are really busy, your SMEs, are able to access the right supports, the right information at the right time in that journey, so that they can then ultimately, as the title of our session says, accelerate their growth. And it's really about doing that together. It's about looking at companies along the value chain and how they can better connect with each other, how they bring in those other key stakeholders in our ecosystem, like your education providers, like your technology centers, like your skills and training professionals as well, so that everyone is kind of working in harmony, and that really the cluster, or my role, is to be the broker of that and try to understand the portfolio of needs of companies and try to direct those. Sometimes that's kind of a signposting between, maybe there's existing resources already there and that companies are too busy to really experience and understand where to find it because it's so busy for them. And then equally, then it could be related to maybe a challenge that comes up time and time again, and that there's a portfolio of need there that it's unmet. So then it's a case of, can we get a number of stakeholders in the room with our industry partners and really try to solve this for them? Because if we don't, it could be detrimental to their growth. It could be, really a stumbling block in terms of the progression of the sector in the region as well.
Are there any commonalities with the companies based off of what their needs? Like, do you see like one need coming up more and more across the companies, or is it, like you mentioned before, just kind of a diverse set of needs?
There is a diverse set, but there's always kind of commonalities. And I suppose we would have a portfolio of diverse manufacturing companies within the region, and that's reflected then within the clusters. So we have companies that are in, building materials, for example, those that are in the medical device side, those that are in engineering, and that's, dealing with things like fabrication. But ultimately, it centers around that challenge with twin transition. Companies are under that pressure. They need to be more sustainable if they want to win contracts and maintain contracts with big suppliers. So we're really making a concerted effort trying to support them with that. And then the digitalization, if I want to bring a robot in, which is the best one for me? So some of it is already there, and there's plenty of companies that are absolutely amazing that will lend a hand. But actually, what we're trying to do a lot is create a strong community of practice where companies might be able to learn from each other. And then once they're definite in the direction that they want to take it, we try to look for maybe funds. Sometimes that's being strategic in how we do that. There could be a couple of companies with similar needs, and actually there might be a grant aid or a portfolio of grants that might best suit them to kind of attach to that. Sometimes it could be a case that if you bring a number of companies together, that maybe they're best suited to collaborate to win business elsewhere. But all of that comes in the context then of, one of our key strategic pillars is around talent, skills, and training as well. So we can have these ambitions, we can have the vision, and we've some amazing companies within our region as well. But one of the key stumbling block and a challenge which we've identified is, finding talented people, or, being able to bring on board young people within our region that might not realize that there's such amazing companies around. And
Mm-hmm.
it's trying to highlight that, externally, and trying to bring those people in so that they can really be the future of the manufacturing base within the region as well, and that they can bring in that energy. So we did
Can
develop
you
a program around that.
can you paint a picture? Because there is a program that we're going to talk about a little later, your dream big program, but can you paint a picture for us here and who might be listening in the United States? So one of the things that we're struggling with is workforce development. So we have a
Mhm.
thing called the skills gap, and a lot of people are really trying to find ways similar to what you're doing in Ireland, where we're connecting the educational institutions with the government institutions, creating policies and stuff that will make it a lot easier to bring in that skilled talent. But then there's also conversations around, Gen Z and this next generation really not wanting to work hard. Like they want to do things that are not your typical 9 to 5. So in Ireland, are you seeing some of the same things? Are you having problems filling up positions? Because we have a prediction here in the United States where by 2030, we'll have around 2 million job vacancies because we just can't bring in skilled talent. Like we can't find it. And then we have our baby boomer generation who are about to retire. And as over the next 10, 15 years, that's going to be a huge chunk of our workforce missing as well too. So what is it like in Ireland? What are some of the differences and similarities there?
Yeah, like people are the backbone of every organization. But I think,
Mm-hmm.
what you're trying to do there is ultimately, trying to encourage, that's where the digitalization pillar will come in as well. I think companies are aware it's very difficult to get operatives, and we do have huge gaps in relation to that. And I think we mentioned before we came on, we're almost at full employment now in Ireland as well. So we're very squeezed in terms of fulfilling that ambition of growth within companies, particularly bringing on new people. And then equally, as you mentioned, you have an era that they don't want to do those particular jobs anymore as well. So I think you can either stop and you can be stale and say, I can't find anyone, or you move and you adapt and you innovate, to try and evolve the business to meet
Mm-hmm.
those trends and to get ahead of them. So really it's that latter piece that we are really trying to support our companies with. What is the future? How can they mobilize that change, bring in that culture change also within the company where they're able to adapt and use and being upskilled, so that you're moving also your labor force up the value chain, maybe to higher order thinking. And by doing that, then you're bringing the company up maybe to a level, otherwise that it will thrive rather than, be debilitated by some of the challenges that they face in that regard as well. But in saying that, you will need energy, you will need new people coming through. And that's where I think there's an opportunity with young people that want to engage, maybe in
Mm-hmm.
automation, robotics, and things like that. But I actually don't think they realize that manufacturing has evolved so much. When I
Yeah.
think of manufacturing in the town that I lived in, it was very, your line where it was manually automated. Now, when I go in to see some of the companies around this region, it's amazing. They're supplying products to kind of global leaders as well. They're, really engaging with the automation and, cobots and all of the fantastic things, to try and drive the business forward. So there's opportunity there, where companies might have a closed door, uh, people might pass and not realize all the fantastic things. So I think there's a responsibility there that we
Mm-hmm.
need to let people know that the opportunities are there and how quickly these companies are transforming what they do and where those skills then are needed into the future.
So are there specific examples that you can provide us of what ATIM is doing in terms of like changing the culture and maybe bringing awareness to the younger generations and like getting them excited about, what's happening in manufacturing in Ireland?
So I'm going to think it's September 2021, we held a workshop in one of our robotics companies, Robotics and Drives, and we'd over 20 or 30, 25 people there. And, it came up time and time again, we can't get any young people. So, as we do with the cluster, you take the need and you turn it into kind of an action and something. So we came up with a program called Dream Big, and that's really about fulfilling the needs of companies. But I think we also need, are we fulfilling the needs of young people? So Dream Big was, it stands for digitalization, robotics, engineering, automation, manufacturing. So it's those key elements and those key components that we want young people to get excited about, that these companies are already doing. Ultimately, it's a program to engage and inspire young people who are locally based to pursue a career in advanced manufacturing. So we recognize through the conversations that all of our companies actually already engaged in outreach activity. The difference to this is it's a challenge for a lot of SMEs as well to continuously open their doors and to create a varied program of engagement. Young people need hands-on activities. Everyone learns differently. If someone is going to be interested in engineering, that passive engagement in terms of outreach activity is probably not going to overly excite them, So we thought about that, and basically it's a program where we have 5 companies. They opened their doors and students went in, visited a new company every morning. We reduced the barriers to engagement by having a bus, by having the one stop kind of drop off. So ultimately we had 27 students from 12 different schools. So they opted in to the program. So there was high level of engagement and commitment from the outset. We also layered the program so that every afternoon they did a hands-on activity that built upon the theme that they were engaged with in the company. So say, for example, one of our members, TEG, they supply component parts to Airbus. So we did an activity around an airfoil. So really the output of that was that there was such a high level of engagement through the week. One thing I didn't anticipate is that they formed such a strong bond and a group. All of the like there was 15 girls and 12 boys. So it also appealed a lot to girls that we had this kind of varied program as well. I've met up with a lot of them since, and we're continuing to engage with them. And actually we have, I'd like to call it a spin-off program that we're now supporting 11 of those students from next week come together again, and they're working on a robotics program. And they're sponsored now by the companies. So we have ambitious plans to roll it out across the 4 counties, but it really works in terms of raising the profile of the businesses and meeting their needs, that to supply a program that is not too onerous in terms of time, but high in terms of impact, in terms of their engagement as well.
So the students that get sponsored by the companies, what does that look like? Are they doing like apprenticeships now with those companies, and then hopefully when they're done, they get a job right away? Is that what that looks like?
Yes, well, actually, we had 2 students, and one, I think we spoke about this before we came on, the kind of different third level, I suppose you'd call it, degrees. So I did kind of a pre-evaluation with the students as well. And most of them said that they were more inclined to go to university. But actually, after the program, there was an increase in terms of their awareness around the varied pathways. So one of the students, I met with her a few weeks ago, and she said she's definitely going to do an apprenticeship now with one of the companies. So I suppose, that's just an insight into some of the impact. And they're actually going back there next week to do a program on robotics again. So again, given my background that I mentioned, it's about relationships as well. Like potentially some of those students will not immediately work for these companies, but in 10 years time, they might come back. They might come back home. So it's about creating that infrastructure and that cohesion in the company between parents, between our education providers, and between the companies, and opening up the doors and really the minds as well of the parents. We had 33 parents that came to our closeout session, and they were more excited, I think, than the kids. And they continue to, they're in contact with me actually still, many of them.
I'd be interested to see if any of the parents make like a career change and try to join manufacturing. I'm seeing that here in the United States where some parents are just like, I didn't know this was available. And then I've heard a couple stories of women specifically in their 40s and 50s who are like, I don't like what I'm doing anymore. I'm going to go into manufacturing and engineering. So like they just made that career change at 40 and 50 years old, which I think is fantastic. What is the state of young girls coming into more technical fields? Like, is it a low percentage?
It
Like
is,
here in the United
yeah,
States, it's at 30%. There's debate, 28 to 30%, which I think we could do better. But how does it look like in
it
Ireland?
is. I've been on boards even at European level about this. It is the constant, I wonder, is it sometimes, we have, as I mentioned, within this program, we have 17 girls, yeah, or we had
That's awesome.
15 girls that were engaged. Like with the program that we're running next week, we have 11 students that have signed up. 9 of them are girls, so what I
That's
really
awesome.
like, it is a multi-layered. One of the teacher, Mr. Maloney from their school, they're doing a lot within the school. We're working collaboratively with them. So I think when you have a holistic approach to that, it's really, really strong. They're actually going to a primary school, those girls, and they're going to teach robotics in the primary school. It's that other level of an ecosystem building that's really, really powerful as well. And they're really strong role models now within their own school and actually within the region for what we're doing. So you cannot be what you cannot see. That's what one of the parents
Yeah.
said, Anne, who is a follower of this. She mentioned that at the closing ceremony in the Dream Big program as well. And what we're trying to do with this is, yes, companies are busy. We're trying to create a platform for kind of meaningful engagement, both from the community side, the the company side as well. And we're able to profile that then and track it ultimately as well, that engagement.
That's really cool. I am if there's anything that I can do to help from all the way across the pond, let me know because I really like supporting any type of educational programs that really bring awareness to younger generations, but specifically younger girls too, because like you said, you cannot
Yeah.
be it if you cannot see it. Are there additional programs in Ireland that students can look into? So for example, here in the United States, a lot of schools are trying to get robotics teams set up through FIRST, and I didn't know if that was something that was known in Ireland. I know they have an international presence, but I just
Mhm.
didn't know if that's something that schools and companies work together to provide mentorships as well
Yeah.
too. So a lot of the companies do donate components to the teams here and then provide mentorships. Is there something similar to that?
So that's the program that we're talking about next week is exactly that. So it's through the local county council. They have a really strong VEX robotics program at primary and secondary, but this will be kind of a program for the Dream Big students, I suppose, and they will be then supported by the companies, both financially, obviously, but also in terms of mentorship as well, which I think is a really the most valuable piece of that
Yeah.
journey for them, and it's that continuation of the engagement, which is really, really important. But this week, you mentioned any other things. It's actually Science Week in Ireland as well this week. So there's an
Okay.
array of different activities. And there's a really strong focus on engagement, as I said, through our national government. There's Science Foundation Ireland. They run, everything from Smart Futures as well, where you put role models into schools as well, which is so, so important. And we also have Engineers Week and Maths Week as well. So it's always that blend of, national focus, but I think equally that local focus is so, so important. And the people are there. We're doing ambitious and amazing things in our community. Sometimes you just need that nudge or that connection to make
Yeah.
it something practical for people to work with each other.
Yeah. Do you know if and this is just me being curious, are there any like major trade shows that happen in Ireland?
Yes. So there's the around manufacturing.
Okay.
Is
I've
it?
never heard of it.
Is there?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So
So
there's the manufacturing and supply chain. That usually happens around May time, and then there's manufacturing solutions in June in Limerick, which takes place in the university, the other campus that I sit in. So that's in Limerick.
I'll have to look into those. So one of the things that I've been trying to do is get kids. So we have next year we have one that's called IMTS. It's the International Manufacturing Technology Show, and it's in Chicago at the McCormick Center, which is a huge event center. And a lot of schools come, and they actually have like a student summit for high school students that come to see the trade show. And I get a bus sponsored to bring 30 students from where my community is, which is like an
Okay.
hour away from it. But it's been a really big eye opener for some of the students because they only know what they see and what they are given the opportunity to work with. So they're used to the smaller robotics and the smaller additive manufacturing printers. So when they go to IMTS, they see it at a larger scale and they are just blown away because they're like, we didn't even know those things got that big. And like, how do I get a job here? And so they're able to like connect with the company. So I didn't know if Ireland did something similar where they would bring kids to
I can
the
send
trade
you on a
shows.
list, and absolutely we'd be open to it. Please come over and visit us.
I want to because I just from the pictures that I see, Ireland is very beautiful, and I love to come hang out. Well,
Bring
is
your
there any?
raincoat.
I will definitely do that. We did have some comments here. Andrew was saying that he could hear you, and then when you were talking about starting small, he said it's okay to start small. And then we have Gail. Gail's amazing. She calls herself a recovering journalist, which I immediately loved her right away because of that. And she has a podcast about curiosity. So if you're ever interested in her podcast, follow her. And then her and Angela. Oh, Angela said she loves the DREAM acronym for your program name. And then her and Gail were talking back and forth. Is there anything else, Caitríona, that we should know about ATIM or some of the other efforts that you're doing in Ireland to really bring awareness around engineering and manufacturing?
Well, I'm taking a group of companies. So internationalization is one of our key pillars as well. I'm
Okay.
taking some companies to Portugal next week. But I'm sure there was avenues, and I'd love to try and connect some of my members, with other members here on the call to see if there's opportunities for collaboration, for doing some projects as well with some of the people that you're connected with.
Yeah, absolutely. So that would probably be a great segue into my next question and my last question for you. If you had one ask for our audience, then what would your ask be?
I think, if I didn't get this right when but I was thinking if I was to say one ask, it's that you can't do things on your own. It's better in a collaborative way. And, to really reach out as well, that I'm open, that's what a cluster manager has to be. And as I said, I'd love to hear from many of your listeners as well. We can explore opportunities for our potential collaboration as well and see where it takes us.
Awesome. So what's the easiest way for them to get a hold of you or connect with you?
I can send you my email as well, and you can share it.
Awesome.
So
So anyone tuning in that wants to connect with Caitríona, please reach out to me and then I can set up an email introduction between all of you. Can they follow you on LinkedIn as well too?
yes. So there's the cluster LinkedIn or my LinkedIn as well. So it's at ATIM Cluster, and then it's, I don't know my own LinkedIn. It's Caitríona Mordan. If you'll find me.
Excellent. Well, Caitríona, thank you so much for joining me today, especially being all the way in Ireland. I know that you're probably well into your evening right now, but I really do appreciate you coming and taking the time and, just teaching us how you guys are developing your workforce in Ireland. I think all of us can learn something from each other. Like you mentioned before, we can't do this on our own, and it's going to take collaboration. So thank you again for that. And anyone else who's tuning in, make sure you connect with her, and then stay tuned because I got a quick message from ISA and they have a great sale going on. So have a great weekend, everyone. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Calling all engineers, technicians, and automation pros. Are you ready to take your career to the next level? Don't miss ISA's Black Friday week sale November 20th through November 27th. Save 30% on industry-leading trading, books, events, and standards. Get additional savings at the ISA merchandise store. The best automation deals are just around the corner. Visit isa.org/Black Friday Week 23 to learn more. That's isa.org/Black Friday Week 23.